നമ്മളോട് സംസാരിക്കുന്നത് ഇതേവരെ കൃത്യമായിട്ട് സയന്റിഫിക് രീതിയിലുള്ള ഒരു മാത്തമാറ്റിക്സിന്റെ കോൺട്രിബ്യൂഷൻ ഇൻ കേരള ബൈ കേരള എന്നുള്ള ഒരു സബ്ജക്റ്റിന്റെ മുകളിലാണ്. കേരളാസ് റിച്ച് ട്രഡീഷൻ ഓഫ് മാത്തമാറ്റിക്സ്, അതല്ലെങ്കിൽ കേരളത്തിന്റെ ഗണിതശാസ്ത്രത്തിലുള്ള സംഭാവന. ഏകദേശം 300 വർഷം നീണ്ടുനിന്ന ഒരു ഗണിതശാസ്ത്ര എന്താ പറയുക ഗവേഷണത്തിന്റെ സാധ്യത ചരിത്രത്തെ പറ്റിയാണ് പ്രൊഫസർ AJ പരമേശ്വരൻ. അദ്ദേഹം മുംബൈയിലെ ടാറ്റ ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ട് ഓഫ് ഫണ്ടമെന്റൽ റിസർച്ചിലെ സീനിയർ പ്രൊഫസറാണ്. കൂടാതെ 1994 നാഷണൽ സയൻസ് അക്കാഡമി യങ് സയന്റിസ്റ്റ് അവാർഡ് നേടിയ ഒരു ശാസ്ത്രജ്ഞൻ കൂടിയാണ്. അപ്പോൾ അദ്ദേഹം ഇപ്പോൾ മുംബൈയിലാണെങ്കിൽ പോലും അങ്കമാലിക്കടുത്ത് കിടങ്ങൂർ എന്ന സ്ഥലത്ത് സ്വദേശിയാണ്.
So let's go straight to the program. അപ്പം ഇതിന്റെ സ്ട്രക്ചർ ഇപ്പോൾ ഓൾറെഡി പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞു. ഈ ലെക്ചർ 45 മിനിറ്റ് ലെക്ചർ ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കും. കേരളത്തിന്റെ ഗണിതശാസ്ത്ര സംഭാവന, കേരളത്തിലൊരു മഹത്തായ ഗണിതശാസ്ത്രത്തിന്റെ ഒരു കലവർ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അപ്പം അതിന്റെ ചരിത്രവും അതിന്റെ സാധ്യതകളും ആണ് നമ്മൾ ഇന്ന് ഈ വിഷയത്തിൽ ചർച്ച ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അത് കേൾക്കാനായി ഇന്ന് കാത്തിരിക്കുന്നു. അപ്പം ശ്രീ പരമേശ്വരൻ തുടങ്ങാൻ വേണ്ടി ഞാൻ
Actually, I'm not a real researcher on this field. So I'm more or less like a popularizer of this theme of the Kerala mathematics idea. And I'm actually going through the book that's recently published by P.P. Divakar. I had been associated with him, kind of having some close contacts and then talks and discussions and so on, for my own sake and for my own understanding. It's been for a long time. And in fact, I was involved with arranging an international conference at KS Soin when I was the director there. And P.P. Divakaran was one of the major organizers and contributor too. So since then, I had been following this whole thing. So what I thought as a popularizer for this whole idea, I'll just quickly say about what is that I think of this Kerala. So let me start. Begin with part 1 as an Indian history. So when you look at the Indian history, of course, for a mathematical things, you start with the Vedas. The Rig Veda had a few contributions like coming from the set theory. And then there is Sulba Sutra, which comes around the 8th century. That has very nice contributions on geometry. Things like Pythagoras' theorem were very explicitly stated, and there were many geometrical figures were constructed and theorems were proved. Then moving further, like Panini, who was a grammarian, but he used a lot of mathematical, the universal set concepts and those kind of things to construct his grammarial structures. And so is Pingala. So from the 5th century, 6th century, and in fact, Pingala is really considered as one of the originators of the competitors. So the first known description of the binary numerical system in connection with the systematic enumeration of meters with fixed pattern on short syllables had really been attributed to Pingala. And he had done a lot of very interesting work on that direction. And then there are, around the 3rd century, there are Bhaksali manuscripts, which just like an inscriptions. We got some of those, just says it doesn't really give you the full power of what mathematics, how it is done or anything, but there are formulas. And very interesting. And this is one of the places we know that we have used the concept of the zero in the places. They use dots for zeros. And that is how we knew that the zero was actually used by representing numbers. So Bhaksali was one of the first places where it was. Then comes our major contributor of whole science in India, that's Aryabhatta. Aryabhatta was born in 476. How do we know? I'll just say. Would be a celebrated mathematician astronomer of the medieval times. His work includes the Aryabhatiya, which mentions that 3600 Kali Yuga. This means actually 499 Christian era. and the common era. He was 23-year-old. This is what he instructs very clearly. So that is how one knows that he was born in 476. This is one thing that I would say, that this Kali Yuga computation or the Kali Dina computation, which had been persistently done by the Indian astronomers, really pinpoints quite accurately about their dates. So it is this computation that helps us to really trace the exact time of each and every astronomer or mathematician. Aryabhatta called himself a native of Kusumapura. So I wanted to bring this because there is also another interpretation of Kusumapura, which probably like an interpretation which says it's a Kusuma is like a stone or something, and somehow they get into something like Kodungalur or certain other places of Kerala, and there is a school which believe that Aryabhatta himself was from Kerala. So this probably, if that were true, this probably was the first Kerala school. But somehow people kind of the present, there is not sufficient proof for any of this, and we still believe that Aryabhatta is from Bihar at present. And he created the book Aryabhatiya. It is in fact there that he says that he was born in 476. And that had continued to have commentaries for the next 1,000 years. Really tell you about the influence of his writing. The text consists of just 108 verses and 13 introductory verses, and is divided into 4 parts: Ganita, Gatika Pada, Ganita Pada, Kala Kriya Pada, and Gola Pada. So these were 4 parts and written a very few verses, but it went on referring for the next 1,000 years. And from 14th to 17th century, the Kerala school had many breakthroughs, improving the work of Aryabhatta. So throughout, so this is like starting from 5th century, I'm already talking to 14th to 17th century. That was the contribution from Kerala mainly. And it's again improving on the same Aryabhatta. But get into much more of very like what I just said as kind of outstanding contribution from our areas by breakthrough improving on his ideas. But this went unnoticed till 20th century. Now the other mathematicians on the way, I'll just quickly figure out who were the persons who contributed on the way, and some of them are going to come back again later in the talk. I would say Bhaskara I, who was soon after, within a century, and he wrote a fantastic commentary on Aryabhatta called Mahabhaskariya. He also has a little Bhaskara. And then the next person is like within a century again, another century, like Brahmagupta, who did on not only on Aryabhatta, he also got into some algebra out of it. Okay? And he was born in 598. That date is also used in Kali Yuga, Kali Dina computations, and one knows that he has claimed himself to be that time. And later he moved to Ujjaini and Avanti, different places. And as I said, Bhaskara was in Saurashtra, in Gujarat area, and he, Brahmagupta was in Rajasthan, moved to Ujjaini, and they moved around a little bit here and there. These are all got from certain inscriptions or certain books where they say such things. So it's been explicitly noted and quoted from their own verses or the next generation, other writers' verses. So it's got from explicit the books, let's say. This comes more or less the first. So another 2 centuries later, the 9th century, Govinda Swami. This is probably, one should say, the first Kerala mathematics, the school. This was the famous Bhashya on Mahabhaskariya, and its name is Govinda Kriti, and actually it is lost. Kind of the Kriti is not available, it's not been traced, but his work has been quoted extensively by Shankara Narayana Udaya, Divakara, and Nilakanta Swamayacharya. And Shankaranarayana is again his disciple, and from Kerala itself, it's immediately after that. And Udaya Divakara is also believed to be another 2 centuries later, but from Kerala. Okay? Then about Shankaranarayana, he is again the 9th century disciple of Govinda Swami and was the director of an observatory that was founded in Mahabalipuram by King Ravi Varma. This King Ravi Varma is the Kulashekara, Ravi Varma Kulashekara, or sometimes also called Stanu Ravi Varma. And this is the main figure in our Kerala history. So in his court, the Shankaranarayana was there as an astronomer, and he actually made this observatory. And not only that, the king used to ask him questions. Okay? He used to insightfully explain the questions of this king. So it's a very interesting, like saying that Nehru or somebody sitting here and asking Baba about the science. It's of that kind. The ruler himself sits with the scientist and then discusses. And it's not just discusses, it's actually been described by Shankaranarayana in his Shankaranarayaniyam. That is his book, where he says, and there lots of inscriptions of science as well as the dates are shown. And in fact, that is how one finds the period of Shankaranarayana and hence Govinda Swami, probably even to pinpoint Kulashekara. Now, one continues. Then there is there are many more. I am only quoting a few, which are, I feel, somewhat relevant. There is a Mahavira from the Mysore side. And then comes the 12th century mathematician Bhaskaracharya. The importance of Bhaskaracharya, actually he really built upon Brahmagupta. So Brahmagupta really had very interesting little bit of algebraic interpretations to all Aryabhatta works too. And Bhaskara really took up much more, and he wrote a fantastic book called Siddhanta Shiromani. And it really means crown of the trees. And it has got 4 parts: Leelavati, Bija-ganita, Graha-ganita, and Golabha. In fact, very often these are considered as 4 independent texts, especially Leelavati. There are so many things known about Leelavati, and it's in the form of a guru asking Shishya, and in fact, more or less like he is asking his daughter and so on. It's presented in that form. It's very, and the Pythagoras theorem just comes there as a question of there is a pole and a snake is moving away from the pole, and the top a peacock is sitting, and then with which angle, how much distance, how do the peacock should fly to catch the snake. So that's really solving a Pythagoras theorem. And this was a very famous question from Leelavati. And there are many more. I'm not going to go more into that. But he was one of the major contributors with both analysis as well as art. It's going to come in our Kerala too. Narayana Pandita is the next name. He is a person whom one doesn't really know. His father's name one knows, he has inscribed somewhere. And according to Kim Klofker, who is a recent historian who has written a book on Indian history, she says she might have lived in the northern half of the India. And the reason is that there are plenty of manuscripts available suggested by the fact that the number of manuscripts obtained was around that day. In fact, let me say, this is one of the reasons the historians look at how to determine the places of people. And this is one of the supporting documents that says for Aryabhatta to say in Kerala, because there is a lot of Aryabhatta literature exists in Kerala. The density of the availability of Aryabhatta literature in Kerala is far more than many other places. That's one of the reasons they try to say that Aryabhatta might have been there. So in a similar way, here also you can see that from the looking at the manuscripts is what she concludes. But on the other hand, Divagaran has a slightly different theory saying there is a reason if he were here, there is something more is not. So we will come to that soon. I'm moving into the second part, the Kerala school. The Kerala school, can't see that. Something with my, yeah. So the first person would say in the Kerala school is Madhava. Madhava, Sangamagrama Madhava, Madhava Elanyapilli Emprantini, Madhavan Emprantini. There are a few verses that attributed to Madhava about his name, place, everything. But it's roughly known his time is 1350 to 45. We'll come back to this. There is something very interesting about that I want to say towards the end of this. Then his disciple, called Parameshwara, Madhasheri Parameshwara. He was a prolific writer. He had written quite a few books. And one of the major books is called Drik Ganita. The name itself says it's the mathematics by vision. So what he did, he himself writes in his one of the books, Drik Ganita, that he observed the sky for 55 years and then he is compared. In fact, in one of the verses that I remember, it's like he says the computations doesn't match with the observations that comes with the Grahanas, and the Grahanas, if I see it, it doesn't match with the computations. So he says there is a need for improvement in the original theory. That's exactly what he says. And there are the next two are like Damodara and Ravi. Both are sons of Parameshwara. Damodara is more well known and Ravi is less known person. And Damodara was really the guru of Neelakanta. And about Neelakanta, he was a terrific, was really well known in many, many areas. Jyotisha, in the Jyotish Shastra, and he also written a few articles. We'll come to that. So this is called Neelakanta Somayaji, Kerala Neelakanta Somayaji. He is one of the main persons, and he has very clearly said he is born in 1444. Okay? And then there are other few reasons to say that he might have lived up to 1530. Jyeshtadeva is another person. It's Parangotu Jyeshtadeva. So because of that name and this and the place, when you look at it, one could believe that he might have been from Tripurallur. And Chitrabhanu is another contemporary of Jyeshtadeva who also had contributed quite a few. Then moving further, the Kerala school country. The next two persons I want to bring in after Jyeshtadeva are his disciples, Shankara Vadyar and Achyuta Pisharati. So the Achyuta Pisharati, Shankara Vadyar, they both had very nice books, they had contributions, non-trivial things computed, and the Achyuta Pisharati was highly reputed public intellectual of his time, an esteemed grammarian of Sanskrit, a poet, and a physician and a scholar of tradition of the Kerala medicine, Ayurveda. So he was really a multi, like Neelakanta. Neelakanta was, of course, Jyotisha only in that area, while you can see Achyuta Pisharati is much more vast, kind of vast. And here is another point, is that among his disciples was the famous devotional poet, Sanskrit scholar, Meptattur Narayana Bhattacharya, and whose memorial verse for Achyuta Pisharati, when he died, it says he died in 1620. So Meptattur had clearly written when Achyuta Pisharati was dead. So you can trace it back a little bit and look at the persons, and that is how you roughly get the idea of which person was where. And Melpathur, of course, you also know about his famous Narayaniyam, where he clearly says, it's written in certain dates. I can't really recall what was that date, but the verse for that in Katapayati is Ayurarogya Sattva. It really refers to the date. So he was a proliferate. Unfortunately, he did not take up mathematics. And not just he, none of the students of Vachita Pisharidi either took up mathematics. Probably they were either Ayurvedic or poets or grammarians, and maybe distributed in other subjects of his expertise, but not in this. So mathematics more or less in Kerala ended with Vachita Pisharidi is what I would say. But it continued. A few people took up and kept looking at it, though serious contributions were not there. But then after about a century later, Puthumana Sojayati, it's about 18th century, he had some nice writings and findings. That's in 18th century. And then comes Shankaravarman, again another century later in 19th century. And the point is to say that Vishnu, so I'm going to say who is Vishnu. That's my next slide. So he knew Shankaravarman personally. Now, what is the importance of the Shankaravarman? Let me just say it. Shankaravarman refined Madhava's approximations to the pi series, to the point that he could compute pi up to 18 decimal places. So till then, from the Madhava's time, before Madhava's time, the pi were computed only up to 4 or 5 places or something, because the original pi series, even Madhava himself is attributed to, is very, very slowly converging. We are going to come to that mathematics soon. But this is one point to keep in mind. So now let me move into the next slide, where rediscovery of the Kerala school. How did we discover this Kerala school? So this Kerala school, as so far what we said, it just existed in that kind of close circle. And in fact, later we will even call them Mila school, because it's just in that small area where Tirunavayar, even Trikandi, Triprangood and Trikandiyu are all concerned. It's about 5 to 10 kilometers from Tirunavayar. They're all in the banks of Mila, the represent Bharat. So how does the rediscovery go? Charles Swish presented a lecture in 1834 in the Royal Society in London on 4 manuscripts he had collected from Malabar, which is Tantra Sangraha, Yukti Bhasha, Karana Paddhati and Sadratama. The first 2 are really the main contributions. They contain a lot of non-trivial mathematics. And how did Vish would have come to know about all these? That's where I mentioned Shankaravarman. Shankaravarman was a person who actually contributed and did non-trivial work to improve that science, and he knew personally, so I would believe through him or his associates, Vish should have got the idea of the Kerala mathematics. But the story was not taken up from them. Nobody took it seriously. And from 1834, it again gone into cold storage. Then it's taken up in 1948 by Ramavarma Tamburan and Akhileshwara Iyer. They wrote a beautiful critical edition of Kirtikash. Interesting point that I would say, I don't think I have noted that here later, that when they wrote this, even in 1948, they did not know who the author of Kirtikash was. Okay? And then after this 48, then Saraswati Amma had looked at all these, and then she wrote, actually it's about Indian history, but she wrote quite a beautiful survey on Kerala history in that book. Okay? There is a book by Saraswati in 70s. And then comes I would say even the father of the reinvention of Kerala, that is K.V. Sharma. But just before K.V. Sharma, let me just say, of course, K.V. Sharma starts even before all this. But in between, there was this beautiful contribution from George G. Varghese Chaucer, who wrote the book, The Crest of the Peacock, a non-European roots of mathematics, from Princeton University. Actually, this book gave an international stance for the whole the Kerala mathematics in the international issue. Okay? So he brought this, and he had a tremendous contribution for bringing out this in the international platform. But then it is K.V. Sharma who really worked for so many years, more or less his whole life, that he brought out so many things. But I quoted here only that he wrote an English translation of Yuktibhasha. Okay, and with extra supplementary notes added by Ram Subramaniam, Srinivas, and Sriram. They too had worked quite a bit on this part of the Kerala school. I should say some 2 words about Yuktibhasha. Why am I keep on saying Yuktibhasha? It's a prose version written purely in Malayalam. So he was a contemporary of Nilakantha, and all the rest of the people, they were all scholars, they all wrote in Sanskrit, while he wrote in Malayalam. And in that book, what I heard while the discussion with Divagaran, that nowhere he says anything, any attribution to a person or a year or anything. But statements, for almost every statement, there is a proof. So according to him, like when I also looked at it many places, though I did not follow the whole book pretty well, but it is like a textbook, theorem proof type, that's being presented even now in this case. Okay. Now finally, I would just say the contribution of P.P. Divagaran. Okay. And his book is called The Mathematics of India, Concepts, Methods, and Connections. It's published in 2018. And more or less, that's what I'm following in this whole talk. So now let me move into the next part. As I said, as he said, I'm going to call them the Nila school. It's all been happened in just in that small circle there. Not anywhere else. It's never spread beyond that, even in Kerala. Now, so this is what I said. So I'm going to talk about a few things. Now, genuine mathematics a little bit, though I will not write any equation. I will not give any. So I thought that I will only say about the history and then give the main stanzas that you can believe that there are contributions. So I'll just make about those contributions. So it's about first thing that they did was, till then they were only doing finite science. This is a concept that got into trouble for the Greek philosophy and even the European philosophy of having an infinite, thinking of something in infinite, taking its limit, or making a series and taking its sums to infinite. These were kind of problems they were facing very bad. While in Kerala school, they did not have, maybe they did not think it to that depth, but they did not have any problem in handling this kind of series and making statements. Okay? So it is about the limit. So let me say the first statement in one of the things from Aryabhata of Nila. He says about the limit exactly like this. How is it that the sum of the series increases only up to that, and that it certainly increases up? So this is like one of these famous paradoxes. So suppose you have a tortoise running. So let it start running first. So it will reach some certain length, and then the rabbit starts running. Now, wherever the tortoise is, the rabbit is running to that. By the time rabbit reaches there, the tortoise has moved further. Then the rabbit's aim is to reach wherever tortoise is. But by the time the rabbit reaches there, the tortoise further moved. if you just keep thinking in this way, how is the rabbit going to ever cross the tortoise? This is where some limiting. So you have to say that with this, with the speed of this, with the speed of that, and the tortoise cannot just go indefinitely ahead of rabbit. Rabbit just crosses. So this concept, this was a well-known paradox in the European or the Greek philosophy. Of this kind, I just brought the tortoise and the rabbit equivalent, but there were questions of this kind. They were keep looking. But they didn't have a question about that. They said it will. So there is, it will increase and it will increase. Exactly. Now look at the definition of Cauchy. Cauchy's definition of limit. If a successive attribution of the same variable approaches indefinitely to a fixed value, such that finally they differ in its as settled as one wishes, as little as one wishes. This later is called the. So the concept of the limit, handling an infinite sequence series, this is something that the first contribution from the Kerala school, which was never thought. Even this kind of thought came in the European much later. Other one is about irrationality of pi. So they make a statement. It's not very clear whether they are accurate or whether thinking of irrationality the way we are doing it now. But they had a statement which looked pretty close to what we say the irrationality. This is what Nilakantha in his Aryabhatiya Bhasha on the Ganita 10 approximate value of pi says. Why is the asanna value given and not the true value? So Aryabhata says, and some division of some large value by another large value is an asanna value of that. So he is asking, why is the asanna value given and not the true value? He says, I explain, because the true value cannot be given by a unit by which the diameter can be measured without a reminder will leave a reminder when used to measure the circumference. A unit which measures the circumference without a reminder will leave a reminder used to measure the diameter. The same unit used to measure both will never be without a reminder. Yeah, will never be without a reminder in at least one of them. Greater efforts will result only in smallness of the reminder, never the absence. This is how it is. Tathastu. So it's very clear. It says they are incompatible. Some scratches on the screen. Anyway, so he really says the Nila school, now the pi is the diameter and the circumferences are incomparable. Anyway, I am not taking the word, but anyway, now Madhava continues. Okay? And now Nilakantha continues. Madhava, born in Sangama Grama, has given an extremely close Atyasanya value of the circumference. Atyasanya it may be, but still asana. So it may be extremely close, but it's only extremely close, and it is not the exact value. It is still approximate. So this is a verse for the irrationality, incommensurability. Now the Nilite school, the third one is infinite series. The high point of their mathematical work were the discoveries of the power series expansions of arctangent, sine, and cosine. So let me say, when we talk about some functions or some calculus or whatever they have invented, they did only for the trigonometric. So there are some attributions about their calculus. And even then, whatever they were supposed to do, they did it only for a few of these trigonometric functions because they were only interested in them and they did not have a general function theory. But all the ingredients for those were present. Now, by a marvelous and unique happenstance, there survived an informal exposition of these results with full derivation in Yukti Bhasha. As I said, Yukti Bhasha, whatever he states, more than 90% of it, and a complete. Madhava's estimates of error in the pi series, when it cuts off an arbitrary finite term, that is partial sums, when they take the partial sums cut off at arbitrary places, indeed they needed an extension of the old algebraic consideration, the Bhaskara's Bija. So this is where the algebra of the Bhaskara entering into Kerala. Till then, like we saw that this is somewhere around 15th century. We saw in 9th century, 500 years before, Govinda Swami and Shankara Narayana did some Bhaskara, the Aryabhata's work, continued and gave some bhashyas and further writings, but they never had anything on algebra. And then even though Bhaskara came, even the Brahmagupta came in 7th century, that is missing. And even later, 12th century Bhaskara came, that is missing. So Brahmagupta and Bhaskara were all missing all throughout till Madhava came. It is Madhava's contribution to mix this old Aryabhata thing that is going and running in Kerala or the rest of India and mixing with this Bhaskara's new ideas on the or existing ideas on this and mingle it to get a beautiful idea, a completely new idea, and get into the series and keep it. So that was really the crux of the Kerala contribution, Madhava's contribution. So for the first time in time, the need arose for general definitions of algebraic objects, such as polynomials and rational functions in the abstract. The model of the polynomial is a dynamically expressed number. And the model for the power series is its formal limit as the number is much larger and larger. It is necessary to stress that these are purely algebraic expressions. It's not a series convergence or it's not an analytic consideration, but doing an algebra in this context. So that's what one calls further. That is like an algebra in analysis. The realization of extremely soaked convergence of pi series to clearly reveal ways of dealing with the slowness of convergence. One is a sequence of better and better estimates, potentially without end. So I mean, keep on iterating. And the remainders of the basic pi series, that's a slow converging series, when it terminated after an finite arbitrary number of terms, and then on the reminders, they write a very nice rational functions. Okay? So on the reminders, they write an extremely nice rational relation and then work on that. The recognition of the series based on the error estimates to produce a new series and converge more rapidly. In fact, this is what Madhava did. And in fact, he did this process twice. So he first had the first R1 the first error estimates, and then did a rational function and then computation and then made a new series. Again did that, further on that, the error estimates on the reminders, and then further got a even faster convergence series. And those process, he called it samskar. Modernity is reflected not only in the nature of the results, but also in the methods that led to them. Recourse to algebraic ideas, going well beyond what had become standard by Bhaskara II. So he really improved upon Bhaskara II very, very drastically. So I'll continue by revisiting again with algebra in analysis. So this is something interesting. Jeshtadeva spent so much time and space explaining what polynomials are and how they are to handle the computations. It's not that the polynomials, the concept was completely not there, but he kept explaining. So one reason it could be, like one probable reason for this much of explanation is that the notion of the degree of polynomial plays a crucial role in his criteria for the accuracy of the successive samskarams. I mean, finding the reminders and then getting the next series and then finding the reminders for it. Okay? This continuation. The intention was not merely to instruct students in how to do computations, numerically or otherwise, but to convey an idea of a polynomial in one variable. In other words, to define it as an object of its own right, abiding in its own rules. So he says there is a parallel between the numbers and the polynomials, and the amount of thing that you need to do it on polynomials, they have their own algebraic rules, is what he explains quite quickly. The definition uses decimal numbers, polynomials in 10 as a model, thereby completing the link between numbers and polynomials. Very, very interestingly, this kind of statement, more or less exactly this correspondence, comes in Newton. Newton has written. So if I have time, I'll show you the paragraph at the end of it. The picture that emerges is, of course, incomplete and fuzzy, but first hesitant sign of the abstract approach are clearly visible. That she's trying to define the polynomial in the right way. So in fact, this is how one defines a polynomial in the current form. Now I think I'll make some few more statements on this and then I'll move on. Okay. So I'll just quickly move on. Jeshtadeva begins with recalling Brahmagupta's famous verse on the rules of science, multiplication, positive, negatives, and fixed numbers and algebraic symbols. So that is how Jeshtadeva presents his book. Then explains what is meant by powers of variables unknown. Okay, so that is really called as Avyakta. So he has a name for the variable, and by an analogy of the corresponding places of the decimal intent. It is this explanation, how to present the idea, is written symbolic notation. One of the rare instances of such device being used in mainstream. So he puts as a polynomial, see they don't have the notation like summation ai x power n I. Okay, summation a n x power n. This is how we would have written, or we have said everybody would just understood. Now it's because we are all trained into say a polynomial is of that kind. But those days, this variable is used like x power n is not there. So they put the boxes everywhere and then keep adding. Now the difference is when some coefficients are added. See, in the numbers, what happens is if there is a 6 and 5 is added, then it is 11. You put a 1 there and carry on a 1 in the next place. But that cannot be done in a polynomial. If I add a 6x square plus 5x square, it is 11x square. So he says that you don't go more 10. So he very clearly says that you take that number and you have to add it and keep it. So it's not more 10. But then there is an analogy again with the real numbers and the polynomials. It is made clear that the polynomial considered are the general degree by anonymous quotes in Sanskrit, okay? Isolated and unuttered in the section of Yukti Bhasha, almost certainly due to I think I'll just skip this part. And then now let me move into the history that I'm going to talk. So this is the contribution. In fact, I'll tell you this contribution that I just talked about is something that's been noted by Bhagaran, and it's still not been might not have been really come out anywhere else. Many people would have said about the calculus part, analysis part, and that the limit and rationality, irrationality, and so on. Many things are written. This is something that has been brought out newly by looking at it in a modern perspective by the Bhagaran, and I like it. That's why I would like to propagate this portion. So that's why I took this part to say a few words. Now about the origin. Many places. Now we are going back to how this would have happened. So let's just have a look at the Kerala school as a history of this school. Okay? Many places he is being referred as Sangama Grama Mathematics. The Baroda manuscript giving the partial lineage of the Nila mathematics, okay, also says Madhavan Elanyi Palli Embra, where Elanyi Palli is a village or house. Madhavan himself writes in a short tract on Venu Arora that he was born in a house named Bahupula Dhishtita Vihara. Bahupula means Ilanyi in Malayalam, and Adhishtita like nearby or whatever. So it is the Ilanyi, and then Vihara is like that. This is how they brought the analogy of the Kerala house name as Ilanyi. Then they combined. Thus, they identified Sangama Grama Irinyalapada, which is there throughout. No? In all over Kerala, Sangama Grama is more or less uniquely identified as Irinyalapada. There is not much doubt about that. And Ilanyi Palli is kind of equated with Irinyalapada. They traced a house name called Irinyalappalli near Irinyalapada. I think it is in Bellangallu, in a few kilometers from there. And is a Nambudiri family survived. Thus, is the story so far created. We would like to say a few things about this itself. 12th century. So let's look at the history of the 12th century at that time itself, just before. Okay? Let's quickly go through. So in the 12th century in the north, there was a Ghoris attack, and then the another two clans with Khilji, Tughlaqs. They all came and attacked massively in the north. About the same time, the assertively Vijayanagara kingdom was formed in 1330 and went on till 1530. Okay? And grew as a powerful Hindu empire. And barely about 20 years after this inscription, around 1350 or so, some Vedic workshop was. There are traces of this and then proofs of this, that there was some such workshop was actually made and in the led by this Saina. The cultural separation between, so now when you look at that Vijayanagaram and when you look at this Kerala, so it is on the northern part, so above the Netravati and below the Netravati. Actually, it is kind of a known tradition as a well-known statement from Parashurama. The Brahmins got all the land from that side, and there are 64 gramas, 32 above Netravati and another 32 in Kerala. So the passage between them were common too, but it is more from the northern side to Kerala rather than. Yeah, this is the background against which we have to assess the reference to Madhava as an Indran. Now, who was the conduit of Madhava's familiarity with the work of Bhaskara? Madhava knew Bhaskara, and it's really Madhava who brought the Bhaskara to Kerala side. The natural coincidence, the role could have been Narayana, and that's one reason Divagaran thinks that it is Narayana Pandita who was crucial link between these two. And Narayana Pandita was, so now he makes a theory. Right? On new input into the Nila mathematics, the Madhava was the geometric cycling. So this is the contribution from there. Okay. We will move further. Okay. We really do not know about Narayana. And the only thing, as I said in the long back, that he was born, his father's name won, and many things were known only in the central part of it. But making him an inhabitant of the Vijayanagara kingdom and assigning him the role of the bridge between Bhaskara and Madhava solves several puzzles, but it's nevertheless speculative, provincial solution to be confirmed or rejected in the future. Now, to end the story, to summarize, the most plausible scenario in my view, so is after Divagaran's book, is that the forefathers of Madhava migrated from the Tulu coast or thereabouts to settle in Kudallur. Why this Kudallur name we brought in down is, if you split it, it is also Sangama Gram. Kudal is Sangamam, Ur is Ram. So whether, was it really kind of mentioning that the Sangama Grama, could it be Kudallur? It's just a question. A generation or two before is there, in a house whose present identity is one of Neelakanta's last. This is something of interesting that I would say. Siddhanta Darpana Vyakhya. Actually, Siddhanta Darpana, Neelakanta wrote it when he was very young. And it is a very short book. And later at his old age time, he thought that no, this requires more kind of Vyakhya or more explanation. So he wrote a Vyakhya for his own. And that is the Siddhanta Darpana Vyakhya. In that he says about science, knowledge is not for all time and must be renewed and revalidated constantly through the exercise of our senses and our mind. So the question is, this sentence looks very much like Lokayata or Charvaka. So it's a very, very rational book. So these words, whether it is really related to Madhava, whether it comes from him or later, while Neelakanta was one who was very much in the rituals. He believed in rituals, he computed for people. But at the end he says, no, it's not complete, it's not the end of it. You have to keep on revalidating, you have to keep on doing it. So he doesn't say that this is ultimate. This is really the science point of view. And that's what Neelakanta says there. Now our extreme statement is, it would be a fitting conclusion to the Madhava story if Kudallur was really his own, and to know that he had a brilliant following in his progeny in a different field. I'll tell you two more lines about this, as in his mathematical texts. Kudallur is a family. It's essentially in the Kudallur village, and later there is another part which is near the Nila part. Okay? I don't remember the exact place right now, but I had been there. So Kudallur is really known to exist for at least more than 500 years. And there were terrific grammarians, and people used to come for consultation from all over India. This is all recorded. Interestingly, they were very rational. In fact, they had usually every Nambudiri home itself will have some small place for worship. And they will have a Srilagam, they will have a puja, they will have all those ritual works. And in that, usually there will be a deity. Okay, that is their household deity. And usually many people will be Ayyappa or mainly it will be Vishnu, Shiva, or almost never Brahma, but Vishnu, Shiva are the most common. Then there is Bhadragali, some place it's Ganapati, some place it's Ayyappa, some place it's Vettaikara. But very interestingly, it's in Kudallur, their deity is Patanjali. The grammarian, the yoga guru, Patanjali. They worship him and not any of the gods. And there were many actions and activities that's been recorded that they were looking at generally rationalist outlets. They don't look at the existing or what people say or what the Vedas say or what those books say. They will say that, no, I'm going to do this. And they had successfully done it for years. And I'll just conclude by one incident that when I visited in this house happened. So there was nobody now. So this house is there and which they claim it's at least about 500 years. It's a small, very interesting, not small, nice place. And we went to a few places and one of the ladders we climbed up and then showed those places and they said, I can see this, I can see that. While coming down, so this is a person who was actually taking care of that place. So he said, this ladder, this is Tekkota. So usually when you say in our all main houses, even if in Tekkini, if you have a house, you will see that the other end of Tekkini, you would have seen the ladders kept to the north. Usually you only climb to the north and not to the south. So Tekkottu Kodi Vekkam Padilla. That is kind of a ritual or kind of belief from the Tachi Shastra or whatever, maybe even Vastu Shastra and so on. But no, somebody mentioned that, he said, no, I'm going to keep this ladder here to the south. And he did it, and he constructed it. So the rationality and going against a few things, but it says that if I see this is a yukti, I will do it. That kind of determination is seen in Kudallur, which is seen even now. What we kind of see or believe that there was some connection, interconnection, and this person was somewhere from it. And more than that, the whole school was only near Milan, and the whole school was only kind of generated and lived, which Kudallur would have 100% support. With this much of an extreme kind of contextual things, I have no idea right now what is going to be the consequence. With that.